Oh, I'm so excited to read these Cadillac Desert papers, yeah. So who's buying me drinks before I start reading those things, right? Who has the papers that are the worst that you need it?
I'll meet you there with my paper.
What's that?
I'll meet you at the bar with my paper.
I'll be at the Sire, there'll be like 18 drinks waiting for me, right? Look who's coming in now. Look at those shoes, dude. Oh, dude, I love those shoes. Those are rocking, man. Right? You spent some time on that hair, that's why you're late, huh? You spent a lot of time on that hair. I can tell. Hey, you owe me the Capitals map, by the way.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you that. Yeah, I have to do the map, the third map quiz.
Yes, you do. Yeah, it's not a quiz. You just make me the map, the Capitals.
Okay.
That's a lot easier. So before you leave, if you don't have the list or the map, see me. I have everything in my bag of tricks down here.
Okay.
And I think everybody else is good. I think everybody's done everything. As long as I get the Cadillac paper via email tonight, so I can grade all these things. Then you guys can figure out what you need, right, to get it in the end. So remember, you got 1:30 to go. You can add up all your points. It probably doesn't score me, correct? So I don't need anybody below 330. All right, everybody, you need an A, B, or C, and you're hopefully more A's and B's. But you can C's, right? There's not going to be B's allowed in here. It's just not going to happen on my watch. Okay, we're not having any of that kind of stuff. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go through this. Are you ready? The first 5, you're on your own. That's out of the textbook. God willing, you have one. Did James give you guys that book that I loaned him? Did James give one of you guys the book?
That was Andrew.
So Andrew has the book though? So I'd like to kind of get that back, you know, at some point. It'd be nice to hand out to students next semester too if they need it. Hey, you guys gonna take another class from me? What's the deal?
Do you run a political science course?
Do most of you, other than my athletes, want to take another another class or anything? Eva would be an exception, I would always do. Okay.
You're gonna be teaching out of Australia?
You could always take me online.
That's it.
Bro, that'd be good, huh? That'd be kind of fun. I've had students taking my classes from Argentina, I mean, all over the place. So it's kind of cool. Okay, why do soils in tropical rainforest areas? Okay, know why soils in tropical rainforest areas are not ideally suited for intensive agricultural use. Okay, because the nutrients for the soils themselves come from the trees above. So as long as the forest is there, tropical rainforest soils are cool. They maintain their fertility. Once you cut them down, though, you cut down the source of nutrients because the leaves and so forth would rain down, and you're like a little kid. the leaves will rain down right onto the forest floor, where they're eventually decomposed by soil microorganisms that release those nutrients into the soil and the moisture that are absorbed again by the shallow root system, which goes up to make more leaves. When you cut the trees down, no more leaves, the whole cycle is interrupted. What factors intensify the concentration of air pollution? That would be stability in the atmosphere. What that means is, if there's not a lot of movement of the air, like if warm air doesn't rise and mix with the cooler air below, if everything is stagnant, if the air is stable, that builds up the concentration of air pollution. For example, in the Great Central Valley, in the San Joaquin Valley, in the wintertime, if the ground gets cold, the air above it gets cold. Does cold air want to rise? No. That means the air is stable if the air doesn't want to rise. So if the air is stable, that can increase the concentration of air pollution. Also, generally, if there's no wind, there's no mixing. So generally you want wind to mix up the air, to mix up the pollutants and blow them the heck out of here if need be. The only caveat there is in the Central Valley, if the fields are bare, and the wind starts blowing, or anywhere where the fields might be bare, and the wind starts blowing, you can get a lot of dust, and sometimes there's nasties in the soil too, that can get up into the air. So generally, you want wind, and you want the air to be unstable, not stable. Okay. Know the most critical issue regarding disposal of high-level radioactive nuclear waste in the United States. You saw that Governor Newsom is not considering keeping Diablo open. You saw this, right? Okay, all right, but what's the most important issue? It's where to put this stuff. The high level nuclear waste. Currently, in the United States, I believe it, pretty much all the nuclear power plants, they store that stuff on site. It stays, so the high level nuclear waste is at Diablo. And no state wants to take this mess because of concerns about it eventually getting into the groundwater, I suspect. Okay, what sector of the economy uses the largest percentage of fresh water? Not only in California, but on a global basis. What is it? It's agriculture, that's easy. What sector of the economy, what country is the largest producer of petroleum in the Middle East? What is that? That's Saudi Arabia. That's Saudi Arabia for sure. Understand some of the consequences of global warming. Well, I think we went through a lot, right? Maybe more tropical diseases in the mid-latitudes, sea level going up, food supply, it might make it hard to grow certain crops at certain latitudes, correct? So changing climate belts could affect food supply. Increase in wildfires in the United States, particularly in the West. Extinction of some species, more severe storms potentially like hurricanes. Inland areas, particularly like in California, are going to see probably warmer and warmer years, warmer and warmer summers. Isn't that great? Nice to live here. Yeah. So, very nice to be in Morro Bay if we have to deal with this global warming. Only make it nicer here, maybe, but I should talk to them. Okay, what are some of the adverse effects of acid precipitation? They can affect trees, they can kill trees, acid precipitation can, and lakes. It can acidify lakes to the point that the aquatic life has a hard time surviving. What gases contribute to global warming? What is the most important greenhouse gas? That's carbon dioxide, but it's not the only greenhouse gas. There's carbon monoxide, there's some of the oxides of nitrogen. Let's see here. There is methane. Surface level ozone can trap heat also. So those are some of the other gases that contribute to global warming. Know what the removal of nutrients from the upper soil by gravitational water is called? That's called leaching. In rainforest areas where the trees are cut down, the canopy's now gone, water can beat down on the soils, take the nutrients down to deeper levels where they can't be utilized by the natural vegetation or crops. That's leaching. That's removal of nutrients from the top soil by downward moving water, gravitational water. Okay, removal of nutrients from the top soil by gravitational water. Understand the relationship between soil formation and soil erosion. On an ideal basis, your soil formation would equal soil erosion. In many parts of the world, that's not happening, it's not sustainable. It takes a few thousand years to create enough soil to be good for agriculture. So ideally, the relationship would be equal. It's not in many places in the world. What are some problems associated with the usage of fossil fuels? Air quality. Let's see here. Global warming, potentially. Acid precipitation. That's the oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur from the burning of fossil fuels. So acid precipitation. Wars. Right? Can get us in trouble in the Middle East over oil. It seems like that's happened in the past. Understand the theory of global warming. My definition, unnatural warming of the atmosphere, primarily as a result of the burning of fossil fuels and slash and burn deforestation. Okay, so what happens when you cut our forests down, as you burn them, burn fossil fuels, that releases greenhouse gases in the atmosphere like CO2, and CO2 is good at trapping heat coming back from the earth. The sun is our source of life, right? The energy comes from the sun to the earth. The earth takes that energy in and then will re-radiate it in the form of a bit longer wave radiation. And that stuff is trapped pretty good by CO2 and H2O, but CO2 is that principal greenhouse gas. What are the relationships of farming practices and soil fertility? I guess what we talked about, if you wanted to maintain your soil fertility, you might think about crop rotation. You might think about intercropping, different crops in each row, and you might think about putting part of your land out of production, fallowing for 1 out of every 3 years, or whatever your soils can tolerate. 1 out of every 2 years, 1 out of every 4 years, put a section of your land, let it sit there and generate. The theory of stratospheric ozone depletion. So ozone is primarily located in the stratosphere, which is where we want it, like 90% of it. And what ozone does, it will it will absorb some of the wavelengths of ultraviolet light. And that's a good thing. So like UVC, it gets most all of it. UVB, that's what we want taken out also. More and more of that UVB in recent years has gotten through. Long-term exposure to ultraviolet light can damage fair-skinned people's skin. It can damage your eyes. It can damage some crops. It can damage the plankton in the ocean. So lots of issues with ozone depletion. Issues related to global water supply. So we have enough fresh water for everybody on the planet. The problems are location. Where is that fresh water located? And then distribution. How do we get it to where it's needed? And then in some areas, pollution. So the issues related to global water supply, location, distribution, pollution. What are the sources of water for Los Angeles? Well, the number one source is the Los Angeles Aqueduct, as you guys saw. But Los Angeles also gets water from the Colorado River, and it also gets water from groundwater. I'm not sure how much LA gets from the California Aqueduct. I am not sure on that. I know the aqueduct ends up down in Southern California. I'm not sure on that one. I'll have to just know that. But anyways, LA Aqueduct is the number one source. Know where the majority of the world's known oil reserves are located. Middle East. And it would be the Middle East. And Venezuela is important too. Canada and Russia. What is terraced agriculture? That's when you're in a mountainous area and they cut in flat little platforms on the hillside. So it looks like this, boom, farm there, farm there. I saw this a lot in the Andes. I saw it in Japan where they were growing rice. Okay, let's see here. Acid precipitation is rain or snow with a pH value less than 5.6. So more acidic than normal. What is that? Why are you taking that? You're just excited about it. Okay, all right. What are many medicinal products derived from? What I'm getting at here is plants. That's why one of the issues with deforestation in tropical rainforest areas, there are many plants there, maybe in trees that we haven't had time to experiment with in terms of their medicinal value. Where is the majority of California's water consumed? South of Sacramento. Where does most of the rain and snow fall? North of Sacramento. Okay. Where does Los Angeles get the majority of water from? Owens Valley. What are renewable resources? Those are resources that, if used wisely, are sustainable. The replacement rate would be equal to the usage rate. Use the stuff wisely. Acre foot is 326,000 gallons. If you cover an acre of land with a foot of water, it's enough for roughly a family of two for a year. Isn't that incredible that as a family we would use 160,000 gallons of water a year? That's remarkable. That's probably going to have to cut down here this year a little bit. I know in LA's calling for water cuts, Metropolitan Water District is calling for water cuts, Governor Newsom is calling for cuts in water usage this year in particular because our reservoirs in the west are so incredibly low. All right, let me get the test out actually, make sure I cover everything for you. Let's see.
Did you say the acre foot again?
326,000 gallons. That's what it is. Cover an acre with a foot of water. Okay, all right, we've done that one. Let's see. Wow. Okay, you should go out today. Interesting question. I like that one. I'm proud of myself on that one. No, that's a different one here. Our CFCs, you know that they're one of the causes of ozone depletion, correct? Okay. All right, that's a good one too. I'm proud of myself on this one. Wow. So you know that LA grew, your paper Max and I were talking, first half of the 20th century, it's Owens Valley water was a really big deal allowing LA to grow. Okay. You should be able to answer these. According to your textbook, UN attributes high food prices to. Okay, read about that out of your book, what the UN is talking about. We've done that one. Would you agree a certain degree of soil erosion is natural?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, okay. sure, okay. Ooh, hey, you did good on this. You have to use your head a little bit, but they're not that hard, it's just you gotta think for a second.
Is that the test?
Yeah, you want
See
it?
it? Yeah.
Sure, yeah. $20. Pretend we're in Russia,
Cheap
right?
price.
$100 and a bottle of vodka, gets you in Russia, okay. Let's see here. Okay, you know about fallow weed, crop rotation, intercropping, okay. High level nuclear waste, what's the problem?
Disposal?
Yeah, right. We don't have any place yet to put this stuff, right? Okay, agriculture, uses the most water. You know what leaching is, correct? Okay, you have a matching section here. And I'm gonna give you, you'll have 5 choices on the matching section. By the way, you can bring in just a small Scantron if you want this time, because there's no essay. I figured this page was good enough for the answer, right? So, your choice are global warming, ozone depletion, acid precip, tropical deforestation, air pollution. So I give you some of the consequences here. What is it most attributed to? For example, if I said skin cancer, which one would you pick? If I said rising sea level, what would you pick? Global warming, right? The killing of lakes. Okay, so that's not that. So there's a match in that. Now there's some true false questions here too. These also. Okay.
Kelvin.
Would you think that in the Amazon rainforest that, what is the closer answer about? 8% of it's gone? 20% of it's gone?
20%.
10, yeah, it's in that, there's not like 90% gone, right? This does show that.
So it's 20% gone?
It's not 90% gone, okay? It's not 80% gone, it's probably 10 to 20 somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, I have a funny one here too. You know what strip mining is, right? That's where they go in and they
Take off there.
off the surf. Yeah, that's where everybody gets naked when they mine, right? You know what terrorist engagement, Bigfoot is? Do you think the number of nuclear reactors in the United States is increasing? No. No, okay, we're kind of on the way out. Textbook, what's the problem with the further expansion of hydroelectric power, according to your textbook? In your textbook, what part of the world is facing the greatest food supply problems? That's pretty easy if you look at your textbook. Where would you think it would be? And what part of that?
Sub-Saharan.
Okay, yeah, sub-Saharan. What's the primary cause of acid precipitation? What pollutants? It's oxides of sulfur, oxides of nitrogen. I think we went through that. Has global warming created a hole in the ozone layer?
No.
People always get that crap confused. What has happened to the percentage of imported oil in the United States since about 2010?
I don't know.
Yeah, we become energy independent right now. Sort of. Again, it's about, we have pipelines to take it here. It's easier to export it here and import it here, but overall numbers, we're pretty independent now, which is amazing. Some of that's fracking, a lot of it's fracking, for better or worse. Oh, this is a great question. All right, so, are computer models sophisticated enough to prove 100% that global warming is occurring? There's no way. There's no way. It's so difficult. Okay, what a great question. All right. So when you burn coal, that puts pollutants in the air, correct?
No.
Sulfur, nitrogen, things like that, oxide. Nuclear power plants contribute to global warming.
Not really.
No.
All right. You know this one. So look, see what your book says about nuclear power. how much of the world's electricity is produced from nuclear power?
Very low.
That's in your book, okay?
10%?
I'm gonna let you look, man.
Low, low.
It's like 20. It's like 20.
Last one is Diablo. No way. Isn't the last power plant active in California, Diablo?
Nuclear power plants, right? Yeah, Senator Ofer is off. Okay, for your textbook, recycling of solid waste in the US, how much of it is being recycled? What percent? Or how much has it decreased over the last 20 years? Look at it out of your book. So there's a few out of your book. You have any questions on that, on this stuff? That's a decent test. It's all multiple choice, true, false, matching, it's worth 100 points. Anything you want to ask me?
What if I bring in an essay? Just for fun.
Bring it in. I'd rather have $100 a bottle of vodka than
Russian vodka, right?
Non-Russian vodka.
Yeah.
What's that?
Non-Russian vodka.
Non-Russian vodka, right? Yeah.
And if you think Putin's crazy, Tsar Nicholas II tried banning vodka in
Oh
Russia.
my gosh.
It's like bad, worse than prohibition here.
Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine?
Drink in Russia.
I'd have to have my own still at home for sure. I'd have to warm myself up, making the alcohol, correct? All right, so should we go through this thing here?
Or we go overall.
Huh?
I didn't go overall.
No. I'll let you guys work together on it. Let me see if there's any